What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Soft Dump in the Corner podcast. As always, presented to you by North Six Sports. Jordo here, Luke's here. We're through another year. 2023 is done and over with, everybody. We are fresh into 2024, a new year, but the same folks, the same good entertainment that you are accustomed to from the North Six Sports Boys and the Soft Dump in the Corner podcast. Laughing in the background, as always, Luke's Penderbury. How you doing today, brother?
What's going on, man? Good to be back. Like you said, brand new year. Looking forward to it. Lots to cover. A lot of breaking news coming through, so I'm excited just to get right into it.
100%. For everybody that is listening, we are recording January 9th here, so we're a little overdue after Christmas, after New Year's. So we're going to give you a little recap of the World Juniors in particular. There's obviously a big deal that just went down as of yesterday between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Anaheim Ducks, which is very big to shock the hockey world, which we're obviously going to get into as well here. William Nylander has recently signed. He got the bag. We'll talk to you about that. So stick around, get through this. We're going to bring up the Bedard incident. We're going to talk about a few other big points there, and then just kind of touch base with a few other things that we have been kind of recap about what we're talking about. But without further ado, man, I mean, why don't you take it away, give your thoughts, and obviously the U.S. win in the World Juniors. Heavily favored. I shouldn't say maybe heavily favored, but certainly favored heading into the tournament. I think they had 7 or some odd, players returning this season or this year, I should say. So that was a big advantage for them. But give us your thoughts here, man. Canada side, U.S. side, obviously beating Sweden. So what'd you think of it this year?
Obviously, on a Canadian side, disappointing. As everyone is, they finished 6th. They didn't even get a medal. Anything that's less than a gold, I think, in any Canadian's mind, is a failure of a year. Obviously, a ton of pressure on these kids, especially leading from Fraser Minton. He looked like he saw a ghost when he was interviewed after losing that game to Czechia. Sure, they may not have had the strongest team, and I think we touched base on that when we first started talking about World Juniors back in December. They still had a solid group with some solid players with high potential, but you have to tip your cap to that United States team. I know we've talked about it a lot. I broke them down as well in the previous podcast. If they had 7 or 8 players just from Boston College alone. You got Cutter Gauthier, you got Will Smith, Lane Hudson. You've got so many strong pieces here, and that could have been one of the best USA teams they've probably ever assembled. And then obviously for Canada, it's just too bad because we all know a few pieces that could be on that roster that's eligible, but obviously their NHL respective teams would not let them go. Connor Bedard being one of them, who is absolutely nasty in Chicago. Feels like he's probably just playing by himself. But Sweden, another strong team too. So I think overall, like I said, tip your cap to the United States. They deserve it. Great team. I just wish we were a little deeper into it with Canada, but it's always next year. Back in Ottawa, baby. Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's touched on a good points there. It's tough to compete when you have so many high draft picks that you're playing against as a whole. And you
Yeah.
mentioned obviously the chemistry side of things. That's certainly a big factor. It makes a big difference, absolutely, when you've got that chemistry, you got that experience at the tournament as a whole from last season. I keep saying season, last tournament last year.
Yeah.
It just seemed like just everything was far superior. They looked by and far the better team. Even when USA did have a chance to play Canada in the pre-tournament, as much as it was, not necessarily a proper depiction of what the tournament was going to be, but you could kind of see Canada was just kind of stunned even in the pre-tournament. You could sort of see just the way that the US handled themselves in that game alone, and then obviously just dominating the entire tournament, not losing a single game. I think they were scoring about 6 goals a game. I think they averaged over 5.5 or close to 6 goals a game. So
Yeah.
just kudos to them. Real strong team. Obviously we mentioned Canada could have had a few guys that played could have played for that team that are in the NHL. USA ultimately had players that could have played in that game too, or that tournament that were in the NHL too. So you just got to think about it from that perspective. They probably would have done even better, truthfully. And I still think they would have beat Canada, and I still think they would have won the tournament. They were just that good.
Yeah.
So again, kudos to them.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens next year.
Yeah.
You mentioned Cutter Gauthier, so let's just jump right into the big news here.
Yeah.
For anybody, big news obviously coming out of the NHL as of yesterday. Massive trade. This is a big shakeup, kind of a 1-for-1 in a sense. Obviously, you're throwing in a second round pick as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a big shakeup for both franchises. Cutter Gauthier going from the Flyers to the Ducks. Gauthier was a extremely high, I think 5th overall pick, I think, right, or close to.
Fifth
Uh,
overall.
5th, yeah.
Yeah.
For Jamie Drysdale, who was a 6th overall pick a few years back.
Yep.
Traded a forward for a D-man, 1-for-1. I'm getting flashbacks right now, thinking of a 1-for-1 trade from a D-man for a forward. If anybody doesn't know by now, you're silly. And it's Adam Larson for Taylor Hall. How'd that work out?
Yeah.
But
No.
let's talk about this one, right? So Drysdale goes to the Flyers, obviously in a regrouping stage, coming from a team that wasn't yet willing, not ready yet to compete. What's your take on that? I mean, tough look on Gauthier, truthfully. I don't like it. I'll give you my 2 cents on it first.
Sure.
Obviously you got a lot of potential coming in hot, high first round pick. You're a high potential pick. You're kind of looking at it from Briere as a whole. Was that Briere's first pick that he
It
made?
could have been. Yeah, it could have
First
been.
or maybe even second draft. I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly, but obviously Briere being there as an early and a young GM, it's a tough look for him.
Yeah.
I appreciate what the Flyers did, keeping this under the radar. They could have really stewarded the kid and said a bunch of stuff you know, as they were playing in the World Junior Tournament. And I guess rumor has it that Philly flew out to go see him. They didn't even want to talk with Philly. They wouldn't even meet with management. Wouldn't even speak to them. I hate it. I don't know enough about it, to be honest, but my personal opinion is I think it's gutless. I don't think that a 2-month period of time should sway any player's decision, let alone being a top ranked pick. From wanting to go play for that team, from speaking good things about them before, to all of a sudden have a change of heart and just completely, shun them, not talk to them. I think it's very childish. Again, there might be something that we don't know about. Could be something
Yeah.
under the table. Could be
Yeah.
something that they said to him, did to him. Maybe he
Yeah.
was just pissed off that they didn't want to, originally sign him last year when they had the chance to do so, or early
Yeah.
on because they were in a cap situation. I didn't like it personally, to be honest with you. I thought it was a little bit gutless. As I said, it's one of those things where I just don't think that, you can really play that Eric Lindros card if you didn't bother saying anything to beginning with, and all your interviews went really well for this team.
Yeah.
How you can just kind of turn the gun and make that decision there,
Yeah.
putting them in a really crappy spot, so to speak. Obviously getting a really high end D-man and potential, at least, in Jamie Drysdale, right hand
Yep.
shot, young kid,
Yep.
can hopefully work the point for them. They're obviously aiming for him to be a top 4 D-man for plenty years to come.
Yep.
Long-winded answer on my end. I'll let you kind of give your quick thoughts, and then we can kind
Yeah.
of go back and forth on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm all over the map on this one. I'll be honest with you. I think it just feels like I agree with you with the whole Cutter Gauthier thing, not wanting to see Philly a little gutless. It's like he's like ahead of like above everybody else. Like I can do whatever I want. That's the kind of feeling I'm getting from it. You hate to see it. The kid probably has all the talent in the world, but there also could be something that we're not seeing. I've been reading rumors all day about it, maybe Kevin Hayes being involved, but it seemed like that wasn't the case. And it's just sad what people are doing and trashing Kevin Hayes online. Makes me sick, actually, from what has been said. I'm not going to get into details about it because it's very gutless. I really think Philly's getting a good player in Jamie Drysdale. I like that defenseman option for Philly, especially a righty as well. If he turns out to be the player that everyone thinks he's going to be, then he's going to probably be their number one. We're going to get more into this down the road, but that's just another young defenseman gone from the Anaheim Ducks roster. Do they really need another high talent forward? No, I don't think so. Like if you look down their middle, you've got Leo Carlson, you've got Trevor Zegras, and you've got there's one more. I'm drawing a blank. Just another
Tavish.
oh, yeah, that's right. Mason McTavish. It's like, do you really need another center? Do you need another star forward? You got to start working on that, like the back end, because that back end is pretty weak, especially from what they've given away over the last 6-7 years. Is I don't know, mind-boggling. We'll get more into details on that, but at the end of the day, I actually like the move for the Flyers better. Gauthier might be a fifth overall pick and be very solid, but I just don't think this is what Anaheim needs at this point in time. I think they need to start building that back end to help Gibby.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, you touched on a couple good points there. I mean, first and foremost, I don't it's one of those things I think with Drysdale's injury history, having played what 8 games
yeah,
last year,
sure.
already injured again this year. I think
Yep,
they were kind of looking from Anaheim's perspective to say, hey, listen, like I don't think you can ever have enough talent up front, especially from the center ice position. So that's kind of somewhat where I disagree with you there because we've seen
yeah,
over the years many kids, many players that have transitioned from center ice to be able to be a dynamic winger. I'll give you a prime
sure.
example in Edmonton. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins drafted as a centerman, presumably after McDavid and Draisaitl came in there. Everyone thought, oh, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to be a 15, 16, 17-minute third line forward. All of a
Yep,
sudden, he goes to the right wing and just absolutely dynamic, has that chemistry. So, one
yep.
example, I know doesn't happen all the time, but I think
No,
that you can never have enough quality centermen, especially in today's day and age.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's kind of somewhat where a little bit disagree. In terms
sure.
of development, though, obviously being a very, you know, young team already, I think
Yep,
getting another player in that team kind of lets them build and grow together, albeit you still need to build around them.
yeah,
Obviously, they did bring in Killorn last year. They did bring in Frank Vetrano this year as well. So they've been trying. Ryan Strome's there as well as a veteran presence. So they've been trying to build around there, but really young in the back end. I think, the just having Pavel Mintyukov, that young kid that's had a really
nasty.
strong start, who's
Yep,
picking up a lot of early minutes this season, and who's been able to sort of fill the bill of, you know, not really so much having Cam Fowler back there and sort of be that presence that he's used to having over the last few years. I think that development and sort of that jump Mintyukov's taking was kind of the deciding factor in saying, maybe we can, flip Drysdale for something in the hopes that, I don't think they thought Drysdale was going to have a long career. Unfortunately, with his injury history, it's just something that unfortunately he's had a few, obviously a season ending injury. He's had a LTIR stint already this season.
yeah.
Those are tough to come back with, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously from
Mm-hmm.
Philly's perspective, you got to look at that young decor. Cam York is there too. They just drafted not long ago. Now adding Drysdale. They have a couple really good, strong young prospects. That
Mm-hmm.
Russian they just drafted this past season, fifth or
Mishkov,
whatever as well,
that
Michkov.
from off.
Um, and then obviously too some of their younger forwards. I think it's kind of a wash for both sides, man. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel bad saying it. I'm not overly impressed by it from one side or another.
yeah,
Um, could it be the kick in the pants for Drysdale to kind of step up and take a next step, so to speak, for lack of better terms, playing under Torts? Could be. Obviously, it's a change of scenery for the other player, for Gauthier going out. He's having an incredible season this year, playing in NCAA. He
yep.
was co-leader in points at the World Junior Championship. So on paper, it looks good. It looks good for
Mm-hmm.
both teams.
Yep,
Drysdale gets a fresh start, and then obviously this kid goes and gets what he wants. I want to transition out of that in a couple seconds to another kind of player that's taken somewhat of a similar route, but just in terms of overall grade on the trade, I mean,
yeah.
I can't really sit here and say I think anybody's really going to win out of this. I don't
No,
mean to be a Debbie Downer and say this truthfully, but I don't see this really being a dynamic trade down the road. I really don't see Drysdale. I've watched several of Anaheim's game this year. I love their potential. I wanted them to be successful. I've watched quite a few of their games this year, just kind of being up late and just seeing them play. It looked so jumbled. They had no idea what's going on. Their power play was horrific. All their
yep,
young kids, they kind of don't seem to mesh extremely well. I think they needed a shakeup. I think they needed a different look in that dressing room. They're not anywhere near remote competing yet. So I didn't like it from that perspective. I don't necessarily agree with Drysdale being a good fit in Philadelphia either. They don't really have much of a strong 1D man there that's going to be able to take all the minutes. I don't necessarily think they
yep.
already have a strong power play. They've been
Mm-hmm.
outperforming what everybody's expectations were of them this season. So that's
Yep,
maybe a locker room boosting move that you can kind of see from that perspective. But
yep.
overall, I'm going to say it right now, and I might be very well wrong. it's a wash for me. I don't see either player really panning out. I haven't even seen Gauthier in the NHL, but I just don't see him going to Anaheim having drastic amount of success early on
Yeah.
based on what they have. And the fact that they just get rid of players so quickly, it's incredible. I know I just chatted super quick there for a while, but
Yeah.
and you mentioned it earlier. I sent you a message the other night there. This is what Anaheim has given up just from a defensive perspective in the last 7 years. I'm going to give you a decor that would arguably be one of the top 5 decors in this league today, in my opinion.
I would say top 3, man.
Hampus Lindholm,
good.
left D. Brandon Montour, top pairing. Second pair, Shea Theodore, who they gave away in the Vegas expansion, followed by, or with Josh Manson, who's now with Colorado, Stanley Cup winning Colorado. Yanni Hakanpää, who they gave up and they got rid of him playing strong minutes in Dallas. And then a veteran, Eric Goodbranson, on the back end. The last 7 years, they've given up arguably 2 number 1 D-men, probably a 2-3 D-man, and a couple 3-4s that you could say are just solid D-men. The combined salary cap for all 6 defensemen is $25.2 million this year. Dirt cheap. It's insane. The last 7 years, they've given up such high quality defensemen. It completely baffles me. And now you can add Jamie Drysdale to that.
Oh.
Insane. Any team in the league would take that decor without a doubt.
God.
And on a salary cap that's what, 83.5 mil this year, 25 mil going in the dare. You're telling me you couldn't spend 50 mil in your forward group?
They're
Leafs are laughing, right? But anyways, that's just perspective, right? To say like, wow, that's the quality of defensemen that they've given up, traded away, is baffling to me. The management is just piss poor. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with their ownership and what they're doing there. And quite frankly, their development is trash. It really is. They might get lucky with Leo Carlson. He was a number 2 pick.
He looks good.
Yeah,
he's
and
doing good.
He does right now for sure. I think he's being, obviously eased in and he's getting, third line quality minutes. Let's see what happens when he plays second D pair, first D pair, how they perform there. Because go ahead and look at Trevor Zegras. You can say all you want about all his flash and his skill and his talent with the puck. He's been butt cheeks this year. He does absolutely nothing in the offensive zone. He doesn't win any board battles. He doesn't go to the nitty gritty spots. He doesn't know how to work a power play. He doesn't, there's a lot of things that you can say negatively. Sure. You want a mission goal, that's your guy, right? I mean, you want a fancy goal, that's your guy. Being able to good with the puck, lacrosse moves, yeah, good, great. Modern day NHL, sick, that's awesome. But are you going to win a cup doing that? Absolutely. Right. So just baffle me. That's my 2 cents. A little bit of a rant there on the way that Anaheim's done their business lately. And it's a shame, but that's just the way it is. Any other final thoughts on Anaheim situation?
I was gonna actually talk into Zegras actually because I heard some rumors today that he might be on the trade board. They might be looking to move him. That's I've noticed he's going to be at one of the top of the trade bait lists. So I'm just kind of curious to see what they can get in return for him, and where he would go and where he would be a good fit. That's up to question. I couldn't even tell you where he would be a good fit. I think he's getting $7 million a year for the next couple years, if I'm not mistaken.
Just ridiculously overpaid.
I'm curious to see. I really hope the kid figures his game out and develops his game, but yeah, there's lots to learn still for him. So we'll see.
Yeah. Speaking of paid and getting paid, Willie Nylander, 8 years, $11.5 million. Holy shit!
Damn!
I couldn't believe it.
Damn!
I mean, he got absolutely paid. I honestly would need a full podcast episode to give my absolute opinion on this. I am disgusted on the fact that the Leafs gave him this contract. I will get a big amount of hate for this, but I don't think he's worth nearly that money. I think if you want to sit there and say, okay, he's going to put up close to 100 points, do you really think 100 points is worth $11.5 million? As far
in today's
as
league, it probably is, to be honest with you.
In what, sorry?
In today's age, it is.
Sure, no problem at all. I don't mind. I don't mind people getting paid. I just have a big issue with people getting paid who don't bring it on both ends of the ice. I've been saying for years upon years, I just don't think he's a very good quality two-way forward. I think when it comes to the time you need to win, sure, he might put up 2-3 points, or call it a point per game in a playoff round, which is
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I get it. You're producing in playoffs. You're putting up big numbers right now. That's good and great. But when it comes down to winning and doing what it takes to be a winner, I just don't see it. I never have with
Yeah.
a lot of those players on that team. I truthfully think Dubas was in the right to hold off on giving them, the 9 to 10 last year. And unfortunately, this year, just the difference in playing style, you can clearly see Nylander's change of pace and change of heart. He's shooting the puck at a much higher clip. He's obviously getting into positions now that are being more beneficial. He's obviously playing extremely good hockey. But I've said this time and time and time and time again. They call it a career year because it only happens once. I don't envision Nylander being a 100-point guy for 8 more years after this. I really don't. And the fact that the Leafs are paying $54 million between 5 players next year, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and Morgan Riley are taking up $54 million of, as of currently, $83.5 million. So what if it goes up $2 million? Big whoop. Like, you still need to pay other players, and that completely baffled me. I'm gonna let you go and give your opinion on it, but I think it's an absolute joke that they gave him that much money. But kudos for him. You go get your bag, boy. I got no issues with him, signing the contract that was offered. I just think it was an absolute overpayment.
Yeah, it obviously sparks a lot of questions of what they're going to do in Toronto. You just mentioned at the end there, I'm happy for the guy. Honestly, he got his money. I heard there was rumors his dad was trying to tell him to get more, which is pretty bad if it was going to come out of Toronto. Pretty greedy, but I get it. Money's money. Everyone loves having a lot of money. Um, yeah, it really now sparks a question on John Tavares and Mitch Marner. What do you do with those two? Because they have one more year after next year. They have to resign. Does JT take that cut? Is Marner going to get a pay raise? Probably. If Willie did, Marner's definitely going to be getting a pay raise. Where that is going to land up, I don't know. I would say the way the whole contract negotiations happened with Marner last time and his greedy father, I would probably say he's probably going to get about 11.75, maybe 12. Now I don't know what you do. To Tavares, what does he take? How much of a cut does he take? I don't know. This just puts so many questions that you're so right. You have to pay the rest of your team. You have no defense. You've got a third string goalie playing for you who, at this point in time, sure, Martin Jones is playing well, but he's not going to hold that all year long. So I don't know what you do. It will be interesting to see. I'd have a better answer once Tavares and Marner situation's figured out because 11.5 is a lot of money. Hopefully he can keep up a pace. I don't know if he can. I love the kid. Got to meet him once at an event. Nicest guy in the world. So I really hope he can pull it together because now his spotlight has increased. He was getting $7 million a year. Everyone loves him. He was putting up his 80 points a year, whatever he was doing. Now he's got 11.5 on his cap hit. Fans are nuts, as we all know. If he can't put up those totals or anywhere near those totals, he is going to be a villain in Toronto, and it's going to be a nightmare for him for the next 7 years.
Yeah, great point. I mean, like you said, fans, especially in Toronto with high pressure market, the media all over you, they'll change in an instant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, they've changed on Matthews when he had that goal drought early on, this season, or not this season, but last year. And then, it's just one of those things, right? But I gotta clarify. I don't dislike Nylander. I don't think he's
No.
a bad hockey player. I just don't think he's a winning hockey player. And I also think there's a precedence that you set when you're going into those negotiations where last year you could have signed for something that arguably was being an overpayment last season, and he held off, and good for him. He held off at the right time because he got very, very hot, and now he's producing at an elite rate. But I think a lot of people don't understand is you're also playing with the best goal scorer in the game right now. You're also playing with one of the more elite playmakers in the game right now with Mitch Marner. And you're also playing with one of the better two-way centers of the last generation with John Tavares. You're being comforted and put into spots that you're
Mm-hmm.
set to succeed in. You
Mm-hmm.
should be being, you should be producing at the rate that you are. The
Yep.
fact that he wasn't and the fact that it took 6-7 years for him to get to that point,
Yep.
that is what bothers me, because eventually guys reach that plateau and there's nowhere to go but down.
Yep.
You're not going to get $11.5 million production for the next 8 years with this guy. You just
Yep.
won't. So that's what kind of bothered me. And like I said, he held out, he made his money, he produced at the right time.
Yep.
Kudos. I just think
Yep.
it's stupid that management gave him that. I thought, if anything, 3-4 years at 11 and a half, sure, that's something I could suck back. But 8 years, 11 and a half, full no move clause,
Yeah, I did see
you
that.
sure as hell better win a Stanley Cup
Yep.
with those contracts in there, or you're going to have to make some drastic moves, because over year after year after year after year, they have said, we're going to just stick with the core four, stick with the core four, stick with the core four. And
Yep.
all they've gotten is what? One series win?
Yep.
Not good enough.
Against my
Not
boys, for
good enough.
fuck's sakes.
So yeah, it's just interesting. Let's talk about something different here. So let's move on to the Connor Bedard incident. As we all know, out 4 to 6 weeks, broken jaw, came through the center of the ice, trolley tracks, got his
Yep.
bell rung.
Yep.
Perfectly clean hit. I think you and I can both agree on that. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are saying that it was a high hit. A fucking guy rose his shoulder. Some people are saying the D-man jumped. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, look at it with a pure, strictly non-biased opinion for once. Don't argue on the internet. Don't hide behind the keyboard. Don't be a keyboard warrior. Bedard was acting like he was still playing World Juniors, like he was still in the CHL, thinking no one's going to touch me. I'm coming through. He made a one split second, marginal millisecond decision to puck was falling off his stick, and he wanted to look down instead of looking up first to figure out where the hit was coming from and brace it. And he got his bell rung. I don't think it was necessarily a heavy hit. I don't think the D-man was in any way, shape, or form trying to hurt him. But you could
Yep.
kind of just see when he put his head down, his mouth kind of came open, the jolt
Yep.
of the shoulder on and the neck kind of jumping, must have cracked it, did something, fractured jaw, 4 to
Yep.
6 weeks. What's your
Yep.
thoughts on the hit? Like I said, I think it's perfectly fine. I was totally okay with it. The only thing that I didn't like about it was that Bedard hasn't been looking for being hit all season. Like, for
Yeah.
some unknown reason, like I've watched many games where he's just barely snuck away from getting hit. And I
Yep.
just wonder, I want nothing more for this kid to be the next superstar in the league. Do not get me wrong. I
Yep.
just do not want there to be a Sidney Crosby 2.0 where you just get into the unfortunate situation where it's not even a heavy hit, but you just move the wrong way, your head hits the wrong way, and your melon jumps inside your brain there, and it just says conky. And now out of a sudden, it's like, oh, here's an injury, and then there's an injury, and then here's an injury. Don't get me wrong, hand up. I'm worried as shit about McDavid. That guy's had some really bad injuries. He's
Yep.
bounced back incredibly well, but every time that guy comes busting down the wing and goes hard to the net, because he plays extremely aggressive, he'll never change the way he plays. I love him to death for that. I get scared as shit even watching McDavid, and he's been injury free, knock on wood, for the last 3 and a bit years. I just
Yep.
really concerned about when Bedard comes back, if he changes his game, because that's the last thing you want to do is for an elite player to come back and be not scared, for lack of better terms, but constantly thinking about it, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's I 100% agree with you. It's a clean hit. I don't even think this would be news if this wasn't Connor Bedard or any other superstar in the league. Fortunately, it's Connor. Connor is a little smaller than the average player on the ice. But yeah, you slip up, make a slight mistake coming into the offensive zone, you're going to get hit. And unfortunately, he was chest first and caught his jaw, and his jaw is fractured. So he's going to be having some meals through through a smoothie and a straw. So it's too bad. You hate to see it. He's having a good year. Is this going to jeopardize his Calder Trophy? It very well could be, depending on how long he is out for. And it really between him and then Foligno stepping up for him, breaking his finger too. That if you look at that roster from first line to fourth line, oh dear lord, that is a tough lineup to look at.
I'd
But
be
they
willing to bet there's a few AHL teams that could give them a run for their money.
oh yeah, and literally they beat Calgary the other night. Like Calgary's got to go in there and go, what the fuck did we just do? Anyways, like I said, I hope all the best for him. I hope his recovery is clean and successful, and hopefully he can make some appearance at the All-Star game. I think it's going to be a little tight, but we'll see. All the best to him in his
Yeah, I
recovery.
mean, realistically, All-Star game or All-Star whatever. I mean, obviously there's no hitting. He might still take part in the All-Star skills comp. I mean, it's not like he
Yep.
couldn't come out 2 or 3 weeks in with no Bucky with a little bit of a swollen jaw,
Yep.
to come in and maybe do a, shooting comp or accuracy comp, that type of deal, or the Patty Kane race, as I like to joke about, with the stick handling challenge. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he does, but truthfully, from a team's perspective, I would want him at home. No running risks. I don't
Yep.
need you, running any risk, having anybody, see you doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and this and that, be caught in the media. I mean, the whole, and again, not to bring it back, just 2 seconds swirl on this one, the whole like Corey Perry incident and just everything that's gone wrong with the Blackhawks already in year one for Bedard. It's like,
Yep.
holy shit. Like,
I
let's
know.
just refresh it. New year is here. 2024 is here. Come back healthy, get ready. We'll kind of see how we can go for the rest of the season, right?
Absolutely.
Let's jump into a little bit more positive here. And I hate to admit it, but Winnipeg Jets playing incredible hockey. All right. You look at my last 2 seasons, I have dogged the Jets time after time after time. I will forever dog the Jets until they prove to me in the playoffs that they're going to be competing. They've gone through stints, ups and downs for the last 2-3 seasons where they look like the best team in the league, and then they'll lose 5 in a row, and then they'll play really well, right? This season, they're putting it all together. I really do believe that the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade to the Kings, getting Iafallo back and getting what they did with return and the other player, Iafallo, and
Gabe
I get
Velarde.
this wrong on every single podcast I bring it up, that trade.
Gabe Velarde.
Gabe Velarde, yeah. I will forever not remember that trade. It does not matter. Every time I bring it up, I get it wrong. I follow Gabe Velarde. Just a massive, like, one-sided win as of right now. I mean, it's just it's really weird just to see. Excuse me. I know Dubois, he's got 16 points in 36 games. He's only got 7 goals. For a guy that's asked for trades out of 2 markets and just tried to really dictate his own play, it's just baffling to me. I hate it. I hate every minute of it. Kind of goes back to what this Cutter Gauthier conversation stems from. As I mentioned earlier, there was a player that we were going to bring up. Well, Pierre-Luc Dubois is that guy. He was unsatisfied playing when he first got drafted to Columbus. Wanted to trade out. Got his wish. Went over to Winnipeg, Canadian market. Obviously he's from the Quebec area. Comes to a Canadian market, gets his wish. Doesn't like Winnipeg. Well, I don't want to play with Dustin Byfuglien, and I don't like the way that they're playing, and I don't like Paul Maurice because he's too hard on me. Now he goes over and he's playing under a coach with in LA under Oilers former coach
Todd McClellan.
Todd McClellan, hard-nosed coach, demands the best, works absolutely well for guys like Doughty and Kopitar and Danault and winners. It's what I'm getting at. I freaking hate that Pierre-Luc Dubois continues to have this attitude that he's going to get the best and I'm going to do this and I get to dictate this and do this and do that. And then you piss poor performance for so much of the season already.
I
Two
know.
sides of the story. Of course, let's swing it back to a more positive with the Winnipeg Jets. Velarde is looking like a stud in that lineup.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
And obviously Iafallo's fit in extremely well.
Yep.
But as one extremely solid coach once said, an absolute winner, Paul Maurice said, and I quote, "Show me a good coach and I'll show you a good goalie." Connor Hellebuck is playing absolutely lights out this summer. Whew. Ball hockey season is upon us, baby. Absolutely lights out this season. Just making disgusting saves, keeping the team in the game. making the big saves when needed, and just completely settling and calming that team down. I think that he is absolutely an all-star candidate, and I think I actually have him in just as kind of an MVP front runner right now too, under the radar front runner. Certainly will never ever even come close, because that's just the way that sports are these days. It's all offense and star power. But you look at the way that Connor Hellebuck's been able to dictate the way that the Winnipeg Jets have been playing. It's unbelievable. So I'll give your thoughts. Obviously, like, they don't even have Kyle Connor in the lineup. I know right now, as you and I have talked about that, they're playing 4 lines, roll the lines. Obviously, just not dominating games, but they've
They
they
win games.
and we talk about it all the time. Like, there's certain teams that can't win 2-1 games.
Yep.
Winnipeg is not one of them. They're just, if they need to win a game 2-1, doing it. If we need to
They're
win a
doing
game
it.
6-5, we're doing it.
Yep.
Adapt and overcome. They've done extremely
Yep.
well with that this season. And I
Yep.
think that they're just playing whatever style of hockey the other team is playing for them. And they're just dictating the pace of every single game they're playing with, not against the Oilers, of course, because the Oilers always seem to be in the Jets. But I just, like I said, Jordo, stuff it. You're wrong again about the Jets this season. I had them missing the playoffs last year. They made it. I had them missing the playoffs again this year. They're first
Yep.
in the league. So
Yep.
your 2 cents.
Yeah, I like the trade, and I think Winnipeg is looking for that depth down the bottom 6, and well, not really bottom 6. I guess like second, third line, we'll call it, with Lardy and Iafallo, like you mentioned. It was a great move. Looking a lot better than it is for LA. They're just deep, man. Even like you got DeMello and Wordsey on the back end, who've been both been studs, helping out the back end, and like you said, Hellebuck's been a Vezina potential goaltender. When he's on his game, Winnipeg doesn't lose many hockey games. So, another kid that we're not bringing up that needs a lot of credit is Cole Perfetti. I think he's been playing very well with Winnipeg. He's taken a huge step from last year. Obviously, you can tell he's feeling a lot more comfortable out there, entering the zones, understanding his space, knowing where his teammates are on the ice. There's the potential for this kid is so high, and I'm excited to see what's next for him. With this team playing well, I guess you could probably say they're pretty well a lock for the playoffs if I don't want to jinx them. And like you mentioned, man, Kyle Connor is not even in this lineup, and they're still winning hockey games, and that is their number 1 goal scorer. So I'm excited to see when he gets back in. I mean, especially for my fantasy team, I'm struggling a bit without Kyle Connor in the lineup, so it'd be nice to get him activated, ready to fire it up. But no, it's good to see a Canadian team up there. Because yeah, I wasn't really high on them either, so that's a big blarb to me as well. So good for them. They're looking strong, and I just hope they continue to play well. So been pretty good.
Yeah, well, last thing I'll say on Winnipeg, second in the league with goals against, with 94 through
Oh
39
wow,
games. So 94 goals against in 39 games, well under 3
wow,
goals a game against. They have the second best goal differential in the league. We talked about that a couple podcasts ago. They have a
yeah.
plus 38 goal differential. The Winnipeg Jets do 132 for 94 against. Willing to take a shot at who is leading goal differential in the league right now?
Who's leading goal differential?
It's going to be surprising.
Goal like Colorado.
No, they are not. They're actually not even close. It
Oh
is
wow.
Vancouver Canucks. They have a plus 50 goals against, or goals differential.
Holy.
155 goals for in 40 games and 105 against. So, yeah, just to kind of give you a perspective, 2 teams that you kind of out of the gate would not be expecting to lead their conferences right now. Pacific team, obviously Vancouver, and Winnipeg. Obviously, I think most people would have expected Vegas or Edmonton to come out of the Pacific this year, and
Yep.
likely Colorado or Dallas in the Central. We're all wrong. Vancouver and Winnipeg are your 2 top teams out of the West as of January 9th, just before All-Star break. And of course, just to kind of top it off, your two teams out of the East, which aren't as surprising, Boston leading, which maybe is a surprise, and New York Rangers, 55 and 54 points respectively. So yeah, Winnipeg, kudos to them. They've been doing really solid, playing really good hockey. Kind of got to see how that translates in. If they get into the playoffs, what's it going to happen? Are they going to make any deadline moves? Do they need
Yeah.
to make any deadline moves? Time will tell, right? Obviously, you can. This league is really weird nowadays with the talent, just the quality of teams. You can go on a 5-game winning streak just as quick as you can go on a 10-game losing streak. So
Yep.
you never really know. I guess we're kind of going to see, right? Any other kind of points on just the Jets, or did you want to even talk about the Kings' perspective further on Dubois? Kind of got to admit, having Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty still playing at such an
Oh
elite
yeah.
level this late into their careers,
Yeah.
they're on hole like 16 or 17 of the back nine right now, and they're still making birdies. So,
Yeah. Dude.
Kempe's taken an extremely solid step forward there. Philip Deneau signing looks as good as ever. He's one of the most underrated Selke candidate trophy winners in the league. I would argue him and Kopitar don't get enough credit from their defensive perspective when it comes to a forward, let alone a center ice position. And then the fact that they obviously win so many draws too from that perspective, it's very solid, man. They got such a good, dynamic lineup. The Kings do.
Yep.
They've got a lot of piss and vinegar to play with this year after losing to the Oilers 2 seasons in a row in the first round. They could have done some damage in both the last 2 seasons, and
Yep.
unfortunately for them, the Oil just kind of squeezed out the wins there. Byfield's taken a massive step forward.
Oh yeah.
Trevor Moore is having a career
Stab.
year right now, just
Yeah.
lighting up the league right now with his goal scoring. Kevin Fiala has obviously settled in again for the
Yeah.
second
Love that
consecutive
kid.
year, looking like an extremely solid fit. And just solid on the back end overall, right? Obviously getting some good goaltending after Jonathan Quick left. Cam Talbot's gone in there and just had a resurgence, right? We talked about it a couple
Yep.
of podcasts ago. Cam Talbot obviously played 3, I think maybe, or 4 years with Todd McClellan in Edmonton, so they know each other very well and what makes them
Yep.
tick. Obviously, we touched on Jonathan Quick having a resurgent year this year with the goaltending perspective out of the Rangers. There's a couple goalies that are kind of just sitting here saying, I ain't done yet, right? The old Jordan Belfort, I ain't fucking leaving, right?
I
Like,
ain't leaving.
I ain't leaving. So it's good for them, man. I like to see it. I
Yeah.
like to see a lot of those guys, even Marc-Andre Fleury, still having a pretty solid year with Minnesota. So maybe not, overwhelming, but, he's still playing.
That
Right.
guy's
So
40.
it's good to see. I like to see that. I like to see some old guys still producing, right? So that's
Yeah.
my perspective on the Kings. I think they're a really good team.
Yeah.
They could be even better if Pierre-Luc Dubois would, perform to the level I think they were expecting, and that I think maybe even he would expect, right? I think he expects to be a really solid player. He was a number 3 overall pick. I
Yep.
think that his career has not gone the way that he wanted it to go either, right? Um, Let's move on here. So as we all know, Toronto hosting the All-Star game this year. Big out of them. I
Sweet.
believe, if I'm correct, this is the first time since 2000
Yep.
that they've hosted the All-Star game here.
Yep.
Were you there? Did you go when you were a kid?
No, I didn't go. No, I'm actually going to this year's one though.
There you go. So I do remember going as a kid. I went down. My brother and I
Oh,
went down
dope.
there with my uncle. We went down and
Dope.
saw, I believe, the skills competition. I should
Yeah.
get a picture of it, but we got, in my back room there, I got all those flags of all the teams. I got a
Yeah.
couple 2000 All-Star
Oh,
flags that
dope.
are up there too. So I'll
Yeah.
throw up a picture of those just as a back or like just sort of a flashback there. But
Yeah.
thoughts on the NHL All-Star game? Thoughts on
Yep.
the skills comp?
Yeah.
What's your take on the voting system? What's your take on fan
Yep.
voting? How should players get in? Should players
Yep.
go in? I mean, we can obviously bring up quite a few things, but a couple of the points that I wanted to touch base on, like, at what point does the NHLPA just kind of look at the All-Star game or skills comp and just kind of say, maybe it'd be more beneficial to our product for these guys just to have 3-4 extra days off, right? You look at,
Yep.
I'm just throwing a name out here right now, but you look at Jack Hughes. Don't you think that maybe he would like to have a couple extra days off instead of kind of looking running around, potentially hurrying back to the All-Star game just so he can make a bonus incentive? I think you can still pay these guys bonus incentives for making the All-Star teams or
Yep.
All-Star, game or whatever. But
Yep.
do you think at one point they're going to get rid of it? Do you think they need to? Should they? How can they revamp it? Do you have any ideas there? Like, kind of give us a rundown on what you think of it.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about it, and a lot of it's probably pretty negative too. It last year was an embarrassment. I turned it on for about 10 minutes, turned it off. I thought it was terrible. I just thought they were trying to do way too much for what it is. Like when you get on the golf course, I'm like, guys, what the fuck are we doing here? Like this is an all-star game, not a golf skills comp who can put it close to the
Oh
pin.
yeah, that's right. They had that like chip and putt type
Buddy,
style with the hockey. It was
oh, it's
stupid.
fucking
You know
stupid.
what? I appreciate them for trying new things. You never
Yeah,
know unless you don't try. But
yep,
there's a certain point where you kind of just say, listen, like, and
yep,
sorry to interrupt, but you obviously know there's your big two or three that you want. You want to see the fastest skater, you want to
yep,
see the stick handling, you want to see the accurate shooter, and you want to see the hardest shot. There's like maybe four that people
yeah,
actually come down to.
yep,
But and I'm sure you can talk to this too, is why does it have to be the guys that go as the all-stars that compete in the skills competition? Like, wouldn't you
yeah,
want a Trevor Zegras doing the skills competition and the stick handling and the
yeah,
putting? And wouldn't you want a few of your heaviest shots in the league going in there? Like, I don't want
yeah.
to see a bunch of
Pace.
89-mile-an-hour slappers from a forward. I want to see a
Yeah,
103, 104 one-time
yeah.
from or a clapper from a guy, right? Like, what's your take there?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And that kind of ties into like, yeah, Toronto's hosting this year. And I think it's going to be a big one, like in terms of the spotlight of what they're going to do this year. Is it going to make or break of what they want to do moving forward? I like the idea of seeing the incentive of $1 million for the 12 guys that they're going to choose for skills comp. I think the players will actually try. Previous years, it just looks like they couldn't give two shits out there, and I don't blame them. Like you're out there, like doing like you're saying the hardest shot. The guy hits it at like 83 miles an hour, and like they don't want to do it. More like we're not. We want to see as hard as we could possibly see it. So I'm excited to see that. That's what I'm going to. I'm going to skills comp, so I'll give a good intake on the next time we either the next part or the one after on kind of how that all went and the festivities around and what they did for the city of Toronto. I am excited. I think it's going to be good. The one thing that I think drives me up the wall when it comes to this is it's not a true all-star game if you're just picking players from each team. It should be the best fucking players to go to this game because not every team is going to have an all-star. Like for Chicago this sake, let's say Bedard can't go. Who the fuck are you taking from that roster to go to the all-star game? So there's so many deserving
They
players
might as
that
well put Tommy Hawk in the lineup, the
yes,
mascot.
exactly. You might as well. It's just so frustrating because there's so many deserving players in the league that are on a team of a player that's a superstar where now they can't go because there's superstars going. Quick example, Matthews is going. Maybe Willie could have went or Marner could have went. Or you're looking at Connor McDavid. Now Leon Draisaitl's got to get voted in even though he's like top three
Or
best player in
even
the league.
I'll give you an even better example because you just know it's not going to happen. Look at one of the best teams in the league at the moment. Look at the Vancouver Canucks. They've got two or
Yeah,
three
I know.
guys in the top 10 scoring right now, right?
Yep.
Pedersen and JT Miller, I think, are top 7 or 8 point scoring, and
Yep.
Besler's in the third place in goal scoring.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to bet not all three of those guys are going to go, and I sure as hell would rather see them there than some of the other guys, like you pointed out.
Yeah, yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, no, it's huge. And Quinn Hughes too. I don't even think he's in.
And Quinn Hughes, you're right,
Yeah,
and
he's
you're right.
fucking might win the fucking Vesna for crying or not
The
Vesna, the
Norris.
Norris
Yeah, yeah.
Vesna.
Best
Oh,
goalie in the league, Quinn Hughes.
Quinn Hughes, the goaler. So yeah, no, it's frustrating to see that. Do they take a break and give the guys rest? Maybe they look at some type of best on best in that time frame. I don't know if you can pull something off that quick, but I don't know. I think this is gonna be a big year. I like to see the draft back. I think it'll be fun bringing celebrities in, picking their own teams. I think there'll be some excitement there. I'll watch that on TV because I remember watching it before with Ovi and his BlackBerry taking photos of Kessel when he's just sitting there on his own. So that kind of stuff will entice me to watch it. So, like I said, I think this is a make it or break it year for the All Star game. It's in Toronto, the biggest spotlight in hockey. Let's see what they can do. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, it's a lot better than last year.
Yeah, love it. I don't really
Yeah.
have much else to say on that. Having been to a few All-Star games here now myself, it's cool to see, but the allure kind of runs off. I mean this truthfully. it's more for the fans than the players. Now it sounds stupid.
Yep.
It's not like a lot of sports like the NBA where it makes a big difference to these players financially to become
Yep.
an all-star or not, because they're, NBA players can negotiate that into their deals. For instance, just a random example, that they can make a lot more money if they are selected as a first team all-star, second team all-star, etc. Um, but just from a strictly fans perspective, I mean, it's for the kids. Kids go in there, they see their
Yep.
idols. Kids go and they get
Yep.
their autographs. They get to, play in the games. They get to have a lot of fun. It's for the kids, for the families. So that's the one thing, just from a human perspective, is it brings so much joy to so many people to get it. Even when I go, like when we go watch hockey games, we're gonna go see a game Thursday. We're gonna get there. We're gonna walk through the gates, and when you see the ice,
Yeah.
you get
So
that
excited.
energy, you get that
You're
excitement, and
fucking
then
fired up.
obviously you go see the all-star game and all-star skills comp, and you're sitting there like, oh my god, there's this player, that player, this player, that player, and you're like, there's
Yeah.
30 players here that are some of the best in the world, right? So
Yeah.
I get it from different perspectives, and you kind of got to have it, and you'll continue to have it because it's a money draw, right? So,
Yep.
um, moving on here, NHL's kind of hinted at, or Gary Bettman hinted at, best on best, possibly Olympics, possibly World Championship. I'd love nothing more. I mean, the fact, and everybody said this, I'm regurgitating. Everybody says the same old thing. I don't want to go into too much detail on it, but the fact that McDavid's been in the league for 8 years now and hasn't played in a single best on best tournament via
Makes me just.
Olympics, via World Championship, it's disgusting. It's
Mm.
disgraceful, and
Yep.
everybody wants it. Everybody has wanted it. The fact
Yep.
that we have not seen Crosby, McKinnon, and McDavid play together, let alone Makar, let alone 50 other Canadians that you could sit here and name, let alone seeing Matthews play with Kyle Connor, and as a
Chuck
terrible
Brothers.
example, just US alone, but Jack Hughes, Quinn Hughes, all of these elite players, everybody wants it, everybody needs it. The fact that
Yep.
Bettman and the NHL, NHLPA can't come to a decision, can't come to an agreement, it's strictly financial. And you look at instance like Tavares did at the World Championships that one time, or Olympics or something, that
Olympics.
he hurt his knee, I think, or had a leg
Yep.
injury that kept him out for the remainder of the year, and that cost the Islanders significantly. Those are the things that the NHL is worried about, that
Yep.
Bettman's worried about. I don't think he sees it as much of a financial benefit to the NHL as it's more of a benefit to the actual Olympic Committee, or IIHF, or whatever the actual tournament is being held under. So it's disgusting from a fan's perspective, because it's just, there is no better event in the world than a best on best hockey tournament. There
Oh
just
yeah.
simply isn't. No other sport, to a certain extent, I'm being biased, of course, I get that. But you look at it realistically, no other sport really draws in, maybe other than like soccer, where there's,
Yeah.
so many good competitive games. If you look at basketball, or even, if you did football, it wouldn't even be close. Like, it'd be like 1-2 countries, and that's about it. And
Yep.
NHL is so different. There's 4 or 5 countries that could compete, obviously, if you did include Russia. So it's interesting. I'd love to see them come back and do it. What's your take on that? Like, I know what you're gonna say, but it's like, should we not just get this done? Like, we've got to see one here in the next couple of years, or people are just gonna lose their noodle.
Time is ticking, buddy. Time is fucking ticking.
100%.
Crosby is not getting any younger.
Yeah.
Sure, he's still playing well. They'll give him that. But guy's 36, 37 years old. Like, how many more years is he going to left to play?
And even too, just to throw out one more name too, just to say, because I know I'm just thinking spitballing here too, but like,
Yep.
think of the last, call it 4 generational players, right? Or,
Yep.
or close to it. Like when you had Crosby, I'll throw McKinnon as that now. We may not have seen it at the time, but the fact of
Yep.
the matter is now is he's obviously one of the most skilled players in the entire league. You put Crosby, McDavid, and Bedard together for one tournament. Like, you just want to see the top 3 generational players to come into the league over the last arguably 20 years, right? And that's what you want to see. You just want to see it come together one time. You want to be able to see those and make those memories, like Gretzky, Lemieux, Messier back in the day playing together, right? Like, we need to see that.
Yeah, like the World Cup in 2016 was so exciting. I loved it. I went to like 4 games. That U22 or U24 team that had like McDavid and Matthews and all those guys on it, that is the coolest shit. It was so much fun to watch. I saw North America versus Russia. I saw Canada versus US. Like, this is the stuff that we strive for, especially as Canadians, because we just love our hockey, is to see our country come as one. And it's like the World Juniors every year. I always look forward to it because I know everyone's on the same boat. We're all cheering for the same team. We just love our country and we love our sport. So to see these guys play together would mean everything to any Canadian that enjoys hockey. And not being able to see it, like you said, especially for McDavid being 8 years, disgusts me. It's disgusting. And those guys wanted too. Like, McDavid's been very vocal about not being able to participate in any type of event where he can play with his idol Crosby. Bedard can play with McDavid. Like, they all, like, that team is so gross. So is the Americans. They're just as gross. Um, and the viewership would be out of this world. These guys would love it. So I don't know. I hope it happens in the next couple years. It would be awesome if they could do it in North America. I would probably spend a stupid amount of money just to go see it, especially Canada with those guys on that team. Hopefully it stays in North America somewhere, because God damn it, I'll fly out there and go see it, because that's the stuff that makes me so excited to go watch hockey.
Yeah, you got to think that it would be if they did have it. It'd
You
probably
have
stick in
to.
North America for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. I can't really touch on too much more than that because obviously it's
Yeah.
not confirmed yet. But I
Yeah.
think we're all speaking on behalf of every hockey fan in the world that you just need it,
Yeah.
man. It's a great taste. It adds so much excitement and
Yeah.
gives other people just to kind of combine together and not cheer for a single team and cheer for a nation, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about kind of wrap this up here with one final thing here. Just about
Yeah.
halfway through the season, or pretty well halfway mark for just about most teams in the league there, coming across
Yep.
the 40-ish game mark. Who's your halfway MVP vote? Like, who are you taking right now if you were to choose, or one or two guys you want to speak halfway on there? Like, I mentioned earlier that I would kind of throw, Hellebuck as my kind of 1B.
Yep.
I'll just take it away here real quick. I've been
Yeah.
preaching
Go ahead.
for quite some time now. I
Yeah.
think Nathan McKinnon is by and far the MVP this season.
Yep.
He had a slow start, and by slow I mean it's close to a point per game, but just for the fact that he's got 66 points now after a slower start, 1 point behind Nikita Kucherov, who's just absolutely disgusting and torching the league. Shockingly, shocker, not kidding. But just 66 points here now in just under 40 games. He's averaged almost 2 and a bit points per game in the last close to 20.
Yep.
Would not be shocked if he finishes as the top scorer this season. Nikita Kucherov is 10 points ahead of third place point getter Artemi Panarin, and then obviously McKinnon being 9 points ahead. So it looks like those two are going to kind of, come down to deciding who wins the Art Ross this season.
Yeah.
The reason that I would give it McKinnon over Kucherov, not skill, not talent, not point production,
Team
is
position.
based on the fact that the Avalanche have had injuries this year. Cale Makar, I think, has missed 6 to 7 games, or maybe a little too many, 5 to 6 games, close to that. And their captain is not even in the lineup this year, who's an arguable top 6 forward in any team in the league. Could even very well be a top line forward on most teams in the league, and Gabriel Landeskog. Not to mention they've had, Arturi Lekkonen's been injured. They've had a few other injuries go down to their back end and just kind of haven't been a complete team darn near the whole season. And McKinnon has just kind of taken the team on his back and just said, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm not going to let us fall out of the, the ranks of the top echelon of the league. And I'm going to really be that guy. That's my opinion. I think Nate Dogg is going to finish with the Art Ross, and I think he's got a good chance to win another Stanley Cup this year.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'll be a little different because I was under the same vote as well of what Nate McKinnon brings to the team. Teams near the top. Like you said, there's injuries, and he's just been running away and putting everyone on his back and scoring goals, winning hockey games, clear as day. So, if I can't be I want to be biased. I love Cooch the way he's playing this year. Nasty. He looks like he's not even giving a shit out there. He's not trying. He'll put up 3-4 points a game. That's the way he plays. His IQ is so goddamn his IQ is so much higher than everybody else's on the ice. Just knowing where his teammates are, produces offensively. But with Tampa not really sitting in a playoff spot at this point in time, I can't really give him that MVP. One that I've noticed is bouncing back to me is Connor McDavid again, and the way they started was obviously pretty bad. I don't know if they were last, but they were near the bottom of the pit. But to come back, being in a second wildcard spot at this point in time, comparatively where they were a month ago, and the amount of points that McDavid's been contributing to the team, is insane, and that gets me my like MVP vote right there. Gets another one, put another one on the shelf for McDavid. New market shout out, but no, he's looking like himself again. Maybe he had some injuries early on, but I hope he keeps pushing. But I've got Oils in the power on the power play in the playoffs. So yeah, I'll give McDavid my vote at this point in time. If Hughes was healthy, I maybe gave it to him, but I'll give it to McDavid.
Yeah, man, 100%. Like shout out Richmond Hill.
Fuck off. He's such a
I agree
bastard.
with it. Obviously, 100%. Always a
Yeah.
bias when you watch McDavid. There's no more exciting player in the league to watch when he's on. It's just
Yeah.
there's elite and there's stardom, and then there's just being McDavid on fire. Good.
Man.
There's a lot of guys that can produce, and like you pointed out, Kucherov, even Jack Hughes is starting to look like that player.
Yeah.
At times, Elias Pettersson has kind of taken that approach and sort of looked like it too, but it's just different. Unless you watch almost 80 some odd plus games like I do in a year, there's some things you just see him do, and you just say like, how
He's
see him?
different.
How did you know? How do you do that? Right. So can't deny it. I love watching McDavid as much as I'd love for him to win. Like I said, I think those are two strong candidates for sure. You make a tremendous point. I don't think they can give it to Kucherov if Tampa happens to miss the playoffs.
Yep.
He could put up a new career best, and I still don't necessarily see it either. So we're kind of going to see, right? It's going to come down to the final half here. You never know what can happen. Tampa's fully capable of winning, going on a win streak, and that changing our perspectives on that, right? So,
Yep,
anything
absolutely.
else you want to jump on that one there?
No, I'm just like you said. There's lots of options. There's a lot of players that have stepped up this year. Like you said, a bunch of guys on Vancouver, especially. It's nice to see more people in the pot for this MVP vote. Usually, it's about 2 or 3 guys every year. It's like who's going to win? It's one of these guys. But now it's kind of the talent is obviously increased over the entire league. So it's nice to kind of see more players having an opportunity at MVP or even just the Art Ross in general. So makes hockey exciting for me at least, and it's good for the game. So looking forward to the end of the year.
Yeah, very well said, man. I couldn't agree anymore.
Yep.
But let's call it a pot on that one there.
Yeah,
like I said, we got 40 some odd games here. We're into a new year, 2024 season. A lot of great storylines. We're down to World Juniors. We're coming across to the first time in 24 years or 23 and a bit years that Toronto's hosted an All-Star game. So
yeah,
the town's going to be buzzing when that happens, of course. Hopefully we get some great news from Bettman and the IHF, double IHF or even Olympic Committee that we're going to see best on best. That would be great. Also, too, again, if you guys don't mind, please go over and rate Soft Dump in the Corner 5 stars. Leave us a like, subscribe on YouTube if you can. It means a lot to us. Comment, share if you don't mind, please. It always is nice for us to get your opinions. And like I said, it means a lot to us that you guys continue to show the strong support. So on behalf of Luke and I and everybody at North Six Sports, thank you very much for doing so. And like I said, this will be another edition of Soft Up in the Corner podcast presented by North Six Sports. Until next time.
Yes, sir.